Welcome back to the Vanessa G Fitcast. I'm Vanessa Pozos, and here with me is Omar Pozos, my co-host and husband. How you doing, Omar?
Why are you going that like low voice? How you doing, Omar?
How are you doing?
I am doing amazing. It's nice and sunny today. We went and did some cold plunging, and I feel like it brought my spirits back. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Yeah, I think you know how I'm doing, and that's a little bit of what the episode is about today is, gosh, you guys, I have not been feeling the best mentally or physically. Like I say lately, but I specifically would mean like the last 1 to 2 weeks. And it's one of those things where I was like, I woke up this morning and I think I turned to you and probably like pretty immediately I was like, I don't feel great today. Like I just feel down. I feel run down mentally, physically, just not feeling on it. And thankfully, I kind of anticipated this because I've been feeling this way. And last night I had told you, I was like, I'm feeling run down. And, normally, at least recently, my routines look like waking up at 6 and either doing work first or going to the gym first, kind of depending on what day it is. And last night I was like, I need to sleep in tomorrow. I need to get a little bit extra sleep, even though I've been, like the amount of sleep, the quality of sleep, everything's in a good spot. But I was just like, I just feel like I need a little bit extra recovery time. So I'm going to allow myself to sleep in a little bit, set the alarm for 7. And rather than waking up and then kind of jumping into work or doing something like that, we decided, let's go get a good cold plunge sauna session and just really make sure we're in the best possible kind of setting ourselves up for the day. And so when I woke up this morning, I was just like, I don't want to go do that, but I already made the decision last night, so I'm going to go do it. And when we got there, so our routine is we like to do usually like 15, 20 minutes in a sauna and then a little bit of red light and then finish with a cold plunge. And so while I'm sitting in the sauna, for me, it's a opportunity to have, a little bit of like a meditative experience. I'll typically do a lot of just like thinking, a lot of thought work, a lot of breath work, things like that. And so as I was in the sauna today, I was like, you know what? I had another plan for us for the podcast today, but we're going to scrap that plan because I'm finding like, even I'm already having these thoughts. And I think I told you even maybe on the way there as we were driving there, I'm like, I just, we need to record a podcast this morning. And I'm not feeling like I can even educate right now. Like I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling anything, to be honest.
What do you think, and if you're not, if you're open to it, share a little bit of like the context, like what caused you to kind of get to this point, and then off of that too, like now that you are in this point, like what sort of thoughts pop up, what sort of emotions pop up for you? Because I think a lot of people will really resonate with kind of what you have to share.
Yeah, so it's one of those things, and I think when it's hardest, when you feel down, I think a lot of people will resonate with this, is when there isn't like a very clear thing to point to and be like, that is the reason I don't feel my best. It's like, it's because of this thing. I understand why. I can, fix that, or I can at least understand it and start feeling better. It's like, it's hardest when you just don't feel great and you just don't have a clear reason why.
Yeah.
And, lately I've shared with you that I think there's just a lot of little things that like on their own, I would be totally fine. But like when you stack it all up of all the little things, it feels like a lot sometimes. And that's where I like to think of it as, I've talked quite a bit on the podcast in the past about like mind management, emotional management, really doing that kind of deeper inner work. And the reality is that type of deep work, the mind management work, it's easy to do when you already feel good, when circumstances are in a great spot. It's hard to do when circumstances are more challenging and when you're struggling a little bit more. And it just takes a lot more effort. And I think the effort that goes into that in itself can start to feel draining, and then it feels harder and harder over time. And so to answer your question, I think more specifically, and this was what I was also reflecting on while I was in the sauna, is when I was just like, I was sitting there and I'm like, gosh, okay, why do I just feel crappy today? I'm like, all right, this is the opportunity for me to take a step back and practice what I preach, which is so much easier to teach these things than to practice them, right? I talk about this with our team all the time too. Like we're so great at kind of working with our clients on mindset, but sometimes we struggle ourselves to work through these things. And so that's where I saw the opportunity of, I'm going to work through this in real time, and I'm going to share on the podcast how I'm working through it in real time. And so as I was sitting there in the podcast, in the sauna, I was thinking about, okay, like what am I feeling specifically? I think that's the most important thing, is sometimes just getting clear on like, what is it that I'm feeling? Because I can say, I just feel blah, I just feel crappy, I just feel run down. But like, what does that really mean? Like, what emotions am I actually experiencing? And so when I have trouble like really pinpointing it, I'll actually go to feelingswheel.com. And it's really helpful to look at it and kind of be like, okay, I can kind of see a little bit of what I'm feeling, what I'm actually like getting more hyper specific there. And I can even share of, as I do this stuff, I'll put it into the notes in my phone, unless I'm like have like an actual journal to write it down, but I'll like write this stuff out into the notes on my phone because it's really good for me to be able to do that kind of reflection, And hey, don't be looking at my
Well, you're
notes.
going to share it anyways.
Yes, but I'm going to be sharing selectively.
Oh, okay, got it. All right.
He's like, oh, let me see what are your
well, you're
deep
pulling up
inner
your
thoughts.
notes app, and I'm like, all right, well, if you're going to share it, I'll read it.
Yeah, no. So, and this morning, I'm like, thinking, okay, what am I feeling here? I go to feelingswheel.com because I'm really having trouble pinpointing what it is I'm feeling. And so some of the emotions that were kind of resonating, that was like, yeah, I think that's what I am feeling deep down, were inadequate. Anxious, that's a common one that I've definitely expressed before in the past. But also something I kind of realize is like, I'm feeling exposed. And that's where, and I'll explain a little bit of like where these feelings are coming from. But for me, I want to pause there to like help people understand kind of what my process is with this. I like to start with identifying what you're feeling, because especially for women, I think that's the easiest place to start, because we are, as women, we're really good at getting really in tune with our emotions as long as we pause and take a moment to actually do so. That's the hard part, right? But once you get clear on what you're feeling, then you can be like, okay, I know what I'm feeling. Now I can actually like dig in to understand a little bit more of like what might be causing me to feel this way. Mm-hmm. And I do believe that all feelings are created from thoughts, and those thoughts could be like conscious thoughts, the things that you're actively thinking. They can be deeper, more subconscious thoughts. They can be beliefs deep down. But everything does come from our thoughts, about different things happening or things that have happened.
So you're saying, and not to interrupt, but just to kind of get a little bit more clarity for the listeners, it's not that you woke up feeling exposed or anxious. It's the thoughts that you were having that led you to then feel that way, correct?
Yeah, exactly. It's been these kind of like recurring themes of thoughts that I've been having lately that are, causing me to feel this way. There's no external circumstance that actually makes me for sure feel that way. It is my thoughts about anything external. And so, of course, it's a lot harder to just be like, okay, well, just what are my thoughts? And let me just change those thoughts. Like, it's not that simple, right? So that's where, for myself, sometimes I'll just start by saying, okay, I kind of have an idea of what I'm feeling. Well, what do I think is like maybe contributing to how I'm feeling? And I'm not saying that these things are directly creating that feeling. It's my thoughts about these things. We're going to get into that in a minute. But it can be really helpful for me to be like, what are the things that have just been commonly coming up on my mind, taking up brain space, especially in those like quiet moments where it's like, okay, I'm not actively doing something. What's on my mind? What am I thinking about? And for me, I think there's been several things contributing. I think there's I had mentioned a little bit of like the physicality right now. I've been feeling a little bit more run down physically, and I understand why. It makes sense. We're traveling a lot. There's been a lot of different things happening, but overall, just the last couple weeks, I've been feeling a little bit more puffy. My digestion has felt a little bit more off. I've been feeling a little bit more bloated. I felt like haven't been recovering super well from my workouts, so feeling lower energy, feeling a little bit more sore, joints a little bit achy. Weight has trended up a little bit more the last, couple months here. And just like all those little things, even though logically I can understand why, and I understand the science, and I'm a coach, I help women through these things. When we're very close to the problem as women, these types of things, of course, like that could definitely be an aspect of my thoughts around those. And I'll get into that. So that's kind of one piece. There's also the work piece. So of course, you and I, we run a fast growing business, and we're extremely blessed to have an incredible business that, consistently has had success year over year. But I think anybody out there, if you are a business owner, or you have been a business owner, or you've known a business owner, like you recognize and understand that running a business, it's not for the faint of heart. It is.
It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job.
Yeah, it's what is it? I think Elon Musk says it's like you're just constantly chewing glass, right? And that's what it feels like. Oftentimes, it's like you're just chewing glass all day in, day out.
For lack of a better word, you're just always eating shit.
Yeah, basically. And it's you get these high highs, but you also have really low lows because running a business, you are, especially when you're like the CEO founder role, your role is just constantly solving the problems that others can't solve, which means by default, you are just day in, day out, probably solving the hardest problems to solve that feel the worst, trying to solve those problems, right? And so like there's just all the aspects of that. You know, we're working on growing and expanding our team, and there's a lot of fears around that of like, oh man, you know, hiring another coach to join our team, and like that's, you know, scary for me because it's pressure of having a bigger team to manage, and there's pressure around, you know, we have such a great team right now. What if I were to make a wrong hire? What if I were to, you know, start to ruin the dynamic of the team and the
a lot
culture?
Of what ifs sounds like,
yep,
right?
Yeah, already getting into some of those
if.
thoughts there, right? It's a lot of just like the fear of the unknown. I think that's also like even part of that chewing glass quote, if I remember correctly. I think the actual quote is something along the lines of entrepreneurship or, you know, running a business is a lot like chewing glass while staring into the abyss. You never know what's in the future. You have this constant fear eating at you because you never know what's around the corner, right?
Yeah.
So that's, of course, like the whole running a business, just work. There's always stress within that. And so that's kind of like a constant. And that, of course, contributing as well. And then there's also, you know, something that's been, and I've shared about this a little bit recently, but the kind of social media growth that I've had over the last, you know, really last year, but especially the last 6 months has taken off quite a bit. And when you grow a larger audience, it's one of those things that I think people don't realize of like, until you get there, you don't realize how much it actually really sucks.
Do you want to share the comment that you posted last night?
Oh my gosh, that one's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think I've shared about this on the podcast in general of like, I do, you know, I get a lot of critical comments these days in like every way, whether it's on my, you know, commenting on my intelligence, on my character, on my appearance,
your body,
on my body,
the clothes that you wear,
on the clothes that I wear, like literally
Nobody's
everything.
commented on your husband, by the way.
Yeah, I guess,
people are probably like, that guy is just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, obviously. But that's where it's like okay, so what you were sharing of, I had shared in my story last night because I was laughing at this one, but like even this lady comments on my like this reel I have where showing a little bit of my transformation, and she says something along the lines of, oh, well, that definitely looks like a arm surgery, but what do I know? I'm just a surgeon. And I'm like, I think it's hilarious. I'm like, I'm going to take that as a compliment. If you think that I had to have surgery to have my arms, like, that means
sculpted.
Yeah. Like we're doing good, right? But that's what you get day in and day out. And the reality is, as I was saying, you have to do constant mind management because when you're constantly seeing these, you're just constantly inundated with comments from other people. You get the keyboard warriors. It is hard. It's hard. You have to manage your mind to not.
Yeah. And I mean, for perspective,
things.
Think of it like this, right? And I'll share why I'm kind of saying this, but you know, if you're dealing with the constant, I guess, for lack of a better word, hate or shade thrown at you on social media, and then on top of that dealing with work, on top of that dealing with your own personal, you know, health journey and everything too, and then you're feeling, you know, bloated or like your body's not responding the way, like it all adds up to the point where you're just like, what the F, and then things kind of blow up. But anyways, my point being is, you know, I think as a guy, and this is why I think I've gotten a lot better at understanding and learning a little bit more, but for me, I'm more of a logical thinker, right? To where I'm like, I don't want to sit in let me think about this. And I'm like, all right, cool. Well, this is a problem. Let's get rid of that problem so that we can move on to the solution. But it doesn't always work that way. And in the past, it's always come back to bite me in the butt because I'm like, I'm just moving from one solution to the next. And I never really sit and ponder and be like, okay, what is the reason why it's causing this? Yeah. And I never address this at the root cause, if that makes sense. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Because that right there is a big part of it. So it's, again, coming back to what I was saying of, it's not any one of those external circumstances that is causing me to feel down. It is my thoughts about those things. It is not a comment that somebody makes about my body that would make me feel down, make me feel inadequate or exposed. It's my own thoughts about that comment because, of course, there's different comments that affect me in different ways. And so that right there in and of itself is a blessing in a lot of ways because it's showing me where I am not free. It's showing me where I still have work to do on my own mindset. Okay, why did this comment feel, you know, more funny? Like the comment I shared last night about the arm surgery. I'm like, to me, that's actually really funny. I'm like, heck yeah, like I guess I'm doing something right with my arms, as opposed to a comment about my character. Someone who does not know me at all is making these accusations about who I am and what I'm trying to do with my social media. Why is it that bothers me? Well, maybe that means that I need to do some deeper work to make sure that I'm in alignment with my values. So I need to know where my line is, where my values are, and make sure that I am on the right side of my line, sticking and holding by my own values so that when I, read a comment like that and maybe I still have that same reaction, I can at least still reassure myself of like, wait, hold on. Let me take a step back here. That's their perspective. Here's my perspective. Here's what I know about myself and what I am doing and how I know my heart is and all those different things. And that is the hard work.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier to do that work when you're feeling good versus when you have that happening in so many different areas of your life, because you're also thinking the thoughts of like, oh, I'm gaining weight. I don't like how I'm feeling in my body right now. You're also having thoughts of, gosh, like I'm really having a hard time with, managing all these people in my team and, having more people, more personalities and wanting to make sure everybody's happy and everybody's growing and everybody's in a great place. And I'm also over here stressing over, what if I were to hire the wrong person, or what if I don't find the right person? Like, what is that going to do to the business? How am I going to handle that? Like, when I have all these thoughts happening at the same time, it's like playing whack-a-mole with managing my mindset to where it gets harder and harder. You have less kind of energy to go around to manage each of those things. And I think that's where cumulatively finding myself back to today, waking up, just immediately having these thoughts of just like, today's going to be a hard day. Today's going to be a bad day. And if I come into the day thinking today's going to be a bad day, today's going to be a hard day, what am I going to create from that? Probably a pretty bad day. I'm probably going to create a hard day because I'm already choosing to have that perspective, right?
Well, and the way I look at it too is we just watched Gladiator 2, which I think is a fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, go see it. But anyways, it's kind of like one of those gladiators that, puts on their armor. They put on this, these like metal pieces to protect them. And it's every single day somebody's like carving at it. And if you don't take the time to reinforce that or to support yourself, to kind of continue to build your armor, eventually it does get to you. And you're like, you know what, F this, like this is terrible. And you're like, I just want to kind of give it all up. And that's, I think, when you're probably at most, not risk, but you're probably in the most like susceptible, like, attitude.
Most vulnerable
there. Because the smallest thing just sets you off too, right? And so kind of coming back to, our listeners, and I think it's very important that you share that stuff. And I want to give you a shout out because I know this stuff's not easy to talk about, but I think a lot of our listeners go through a lot of this, and not just on their own personal stuff, but also their own healing journey and their own weight loss journey and their own just lives in general. So I think it's also very cool how you can kind of help people understand what they're going through, how to support themselves, most importantly, kind of how to get through these down days, if you want to call it.
Yeah, well, I hope that if nothing else, like you can take away from this episode that you're not alone if you struggle with this stuff, because the reality is you might not resonate with every aspect of what I've been sharing here of, maybe you don't run a business, but maybe you work inside of a business and you experience stress within your work that maybe looks differently from the stress that I'm experiencing, but you're still feeling a lot of heightened emotions and a lot of, carrying a lot of like hard thoughts to where you might resonate with feeling anxious or inadequate or exposed in that area. Maybe, you don't feel the kind of aspect of like the social media growth. Maybe that's not something that you're experiencing, but maybe you experience it on like a different level of maybe you are within a community to where there's some things going on with that community that's making you feel judged and exposed and kind of question yourself.
Even within your own family, or maybe an unsupportive spouse, or, I don't know, family member, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And so my goal of this episode is that I want you to understand, of course, one, that you're not alone. There's nothing wrong with you. The reality is life isn't meant to feel good all of the time. Like, we're not supposed to feel happy and just joyful and excited and just like waking up like the birds are chirping and we're just so excited to get into our day. Yet we come to think that we're supposed to feel that way because we see the highlight reels of everybody else. We see the day in the life of everybody on Instagram being like, oh, this is my, I'm so happy and like everything's so great. And we think, why do I feel crappy waking up? Why am I not excited for the day? Why do I wake up feeling anxious? The reality is, it might not mean that anything's going wrong. It could, and that's another conversation of like, all emotions are also signals, and if we're feeling that way every day, day in, day out, there's probably something we need to address. But the reality is, we're not going to feel good all the time. And I think what can be really hard, and something I have to work really hard on with myself, is not making a decision of like, today's going to be a bad day. This week's going to be a bad week. This is going to be hard. This is going to be challenging. And then creating that because I'm just choosing that perspective, as opposed to me just waking up, noticing of like, not feeling the best today. My emotions are a little bit more on that like negative frequency, and I just, physically don't feel great, mentally don't feel that great, but being like, that's okay. Nothing's going wrong. I understand why I'm feeling that way. And that's why I do that work, why I'm sitting in that sauna, taking notes on my notes app of like acknowledging what is on my mind, what am I feeling. That's why I'm noticing those things, because it's important to acknowledge and understand where they're coming from. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to just rush to change those things. To a certain level, it's about acceptance and about accepting the fact that we're not going to feel good all the time. So knowing that we're not going to feel good all the time, how can we still take actions from that serve us and that still move us forward in the right direction, so we're not throwing in the towel on our goals and what's important to us every time we don't feel great.
Yeah. Can I add a little bit like of tactical, I guess, my own tactical opinion that works for me in that specific situation? So I think for me, and we've talked about this sometimes when you have, all of these different like areas of your life that you're trying to juggle, and we can call them like balls up in the air, right? And like one drops and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible mom, or oh my gosh, I'm a terrible wife or sister, or I'm a terrible person for not prioritizing myself. I think that's where we get a lot of the anxiety and those feelings of like, I can't do this and I'm going to throw in the towel. What helps for me and a good reminder of for myself is, that's where I go back to like my own core values, and I'm like, okay, what are my priorities in this stage of life?
Yeah.
I know we were talking about last night, we were watching White Lotus, right? And that show is all over the place.
Super weird
Vanessa
right now.
mentioned it's giving her anxiety. But one of the things that
Give me the ick.
The Buddhist monks mentioned, he was like, well, I think a lot of people lose their sense of self, like reality, right? And what
I'm
are
so glad
their
you're getting
priorities?
inspiration from White Lotus.
The monk was very inspirational. But anyways, to me, I'm like, okay, well then, despite work and life and me as a husband and a business owner and everything, like what do I do? What do I want to leave as my own like legacy, like what makes me happy kind of thing. And that's always helps me ground myself. And I'm like, okay, right now my priority is work. And so maybe my relationships as friends are going to go a little bit lower on the totem pole, and that's okay, because right now that's not my priority. And then there might be another phase of life when we decide to have a family where my biggest priority is going to be a dad, and business is going to, and so anyways, that helps me always be like, okay, what are my priorities right now? What are my core values? How do I need to focus my time and attention, and I'm okay with the other things kind of falling off track a little,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's a lot of just really acknowledging like how we're feeling, for one. So kind of coming back to recognize how you're feeling. Don't just like feel crappy and then just be like, I'm just going to push through and I'm just going to ignore that, because that's going to feel a lot like, trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It's just going to keep popping back up and hit you, and it's just going to get pop back up stronger and stronger, right? So rather than just ignoring how we're feeling, let's face it, let's acknowledge it. We don't necessarily have to change it. If we want to change it, we can, and that's part of the acknowledgement and the awareness aspect, is recognizing that, hey, I'm the one making myself feel this way. It's my own thoughts, it's my own perspective. It's kind of just what I'm choosing to look at, because, I'm like, as I'm sitting in the cold plunge then after we sauna, and I'm sitting outside, I'm sitting alone, it's beautiful weather, I'm seeing these birds fly by in this blue sky, and I'm like, it is a freaking beautiful day out. Mm-hmm. And somebody out there is having the best day of their life right now. And here I am choosing to say that today's a bad day, that today's a hard day. And that's my own thought, and that's my own choice to label it that way. And that's probably not going to create a day that I actually want to have. So while it's not as simple as just being like, okay, I'm creating this, and so I'm just going to change it. It's a lot harder than that. What I suggest doing, and what I did in kind of that moment, is, again, I had put everything into the notes in my phone. I'm asking myself, what thoughts about these things that are on my mind are making me ultimately feel this way? Because those things are on my mind.
Getting
yes,
curious
I'm thinking about the fact that, that I'm dealing with XYZ going on at work. Like, I'm thinking about those things, but what am I actually saying about those things? What is the perspective I'm taking? What words am I actually choosing to describe that in my head to myself, or maybe even externally to other people? And I'm writing that all out. And by writing it out or typing it out in this instance, it's forcing me to look at it and see, like, oh, I can see that, like, if that's just playing on repeat over and over again in my brain, makes sense why I'm feeling pretty down right now. And so it's not to say that I have to be like, stop thinking that, because it's not always that easy. We might have these thoughts continuously come up. But what if I let that thought be there? And I say, okay, that's one way of looking at this, and that's another thought, and that might be true, that might feel true for me right now, and like, I can have that thought, that's okay. But like, what's another way of looking at this that also feels true? what's another perspective I can take? And it might just not feel automatic to take that perspective, but I can actively remind myself of that. And so for me, that's where I write out all these thoughts. So like I'm looking at some of the thoughts I had written out, and I had even written out things
I'm trying to put my hand on my face.
Yeah, don't be looking at my private internal thoughts. No, so I'm writing out like, what if this continues to feel hard day in, day out, and as we grow, it gets harder and it just feels awful forever going forward. Like that's a very dramatic thought. And it's kind of that like, running a business is a lot like staring into the abyss, where you have hard days, hard times. And, again, throughout the hard, there's so much good happening. I don't want to make it sound like doomsday by any means. Like our business is like, we're all the time, we're also talking about how grateful we are because like it's incredible. But growth does not happen without discomfort. And so being in that discomfort, sometimes I'm just like, man, this is hard. I don't know if I feel strong enough to continuously feel challenged day in, day out. What if I forever feel challenged? And so that's scary. And of course, I'm going to now feel inadequate. Of course, I'm going to feel anxious thinking that. But instead, I can ask myself, what are some other thoughts here? And so that's where so in real time, like I'm adding these notes to my phone. I also keep a running notes of different affirmations and reminders that sometimes I need to give myself.
Ooh, give us one or two affirmations.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of honestly read through the list a little bit, because these are affirmations I've reminded myself of many times over the last, year and a half or so when I first made this list, and I've continuously added to it. Every time I like hear somebody say something that I'm like, that really resonates, I need to remind myself of that. I kind of add it to this list, and it's helpful. And a lot of these are more like specific to my role as running a growing business. And so I do think that these apply in many areas of life, and I do also apply these to other areas of life. But, some of the ones I was reminding myself of this morning is I'm creating my story as an entrepreneur, and the resistance that I feel is kind of that turning point of the great story. No story exists without, turmoil and challenge and overcoming challenges. I have in here things like, I'm all in no matter what this looks like. I'm all in for all the days and all the emotions. I'm not giving up, because the woman I'll be a few years from now is counting on me. Like reminding myself of these things that are like a little bit more inspirational and help me get out of the moment and be like, oh, this is like, even if I look back on, if I looked back 3 years from now and told that version of myself 3 years ago, like, you're going to be stressed because you're dealing with these problems, that version of me would have been like, heck yeah, that's awesome. I'm dealing with those problems. Like, oh my God, what a blessing to be struggling with these things, right? Some other, other affirmations I have on this list that I think apply to some of the other areas, especially more of like the judgment area, like around social media. Something I often repeat to myself is, I'm okay with people being wrong about me, and I'm okay with people being right about me. I think that one's a big one, because I am perpetually like, I truly am the person who wants all these strangers on the internet to like me. Like, that's the reality of it. Like, I want to be liked, and I don't want people to not like me. That's really what it comes down to if you boil it down. That makes you a normal
human being, yeah.
And so what I have to remind myself of is, if I have a lot of people, viewing my content and viewing my views, my perspectives, it just makes sense that there are going to be people who disagree with those things. And so I have to remind myself, I am okay with people being wrong about me, meaning that some people are going to have the wrong point of view. Some people are going to say things about my character that it might trigger me, because I might be like, I don't want someone to think I am that way. But as long as I know I'm not that way, as long as I know who I am, and the people who are closest to me, who really truly know my heart, know my brain, know the way I think, as long as they also can recognize that, that's what matters to me most, right? The other aspect of that affirmation is, I'm okay with people being right about me, because the reality is there probably will be things that sting, because maybe people say things that on some level, or, depending on what it is, maybe it is entirely true. And maybe the reason that it bothers me is because I'm like, oh man, they're holding up the mirror and showing me something that I'm not happy with. That's a hard thing to face, but we have to be okay with that in life, right?
Yeah.
You can't grow if you don't know where you want to grow. And sometimes we see those opportunities for growth via other people holding up that mirror to us. Some other, more kind of simple ones that I'll remind myself of is just, I accept what is and I release what is not. I do that often with breath work of like, breathe in, I accept what is, breathe out, I accept what is not, because reminding myself of like, I can accept the facts and the circumstances and what they truly are, but I need to release the things that are not factually true and things that I'm creating, and kind of separating out the difference between like the reality versus like my take on the thing. And, you know, another reminder for myself is just like, the more good you do, the more people think that you're going to be secretly evil, because we're in a world where that's just kind of what people tend to think. And the more the affirmation here is, a world where I help people is more fun than a world where I don't. And so that's kind of the reminder I have to make as well. And sometimes I need to like turn to other, you know, podcasts, other people I admire, different things to get that kind of inspiration, that reminder to be like, hey, I'm not alone in this. Like, typically anybody who has any eyeballs on them and is trying to do good in the world is also going to be very, very criticized. And that's just part of the game. And the reality is, if I want to be in a world where I know that I'm doing good and I know that I am working to better that world, then the criticism is just going to come along with that. And I would still rather face that criticism and do good than not do good because I'm afraid of the criticism.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I know that stuff is not easy to talk about.
Yeah. But I hope that this is helpful for somebody out there that maybe you're struggling with those things. So kind of wrapping it up, takeaways here. Be aware of what you're feeling. If you feel off and you're like, this is not, you know, this is affecting how I'm going about my day, this is affecting the outcomes of my day, take a pause and just maybe pull up that feelings wheel, get clear on what you're feeling. Then maybe consider doing a thought download like I had shared, where you really just actually write out or type out what is on your mind, what are your thoughts about those things. Consider maybe choosing other thoughts. Maybe look externally at mantras that resonate with you, or quotes from other people, or, you know, things other people have told you. Think about other perspectives that you can resonate
curious with it.
Exactly. And then just at the end of the day, take action anyway. I did not want to do a podcast this morning when I woke up, but here I am actively doing the podcast and just using it as an opportunity to share with you guys in real time what it's like working through these things, and recognizing that we're not going to feel good every single day. That's okay. That's what it means to be a human. That's life. It's about just continuing to show up anyway. So I hope this episode was helpful for you. If it was, do me a favor, send it to a friend, share it with somebody who you think would benefit from it as well. But we will be back next week with another great episode.
Bye, everybody.